Hi, it's Will from StormTheCastle.com, and here on YouTube you know me as Epic Fantasy. And this is my latest tutorial. This is a knife making tutorial. This is how to make a sub-hilt fighting knife. See that? Fun and interesting project. Little bit of blacksmithing in this. A lot of metalworking. This is an interesting thing about this project is it's actually the steel version of the sub-hilt fighting knife that I made out of foam board. You remember, I don't know if you follow my channel, you remember that project? So I made the same knife, or pretty close to the same knife, out of steel. Right? Like it. Kind of fun thing to do. I really enjoyed that. Let me talk a little bit about a sub-hilt knife. We'll launch into the tutorial. But the thing about it is it has, you know, you have your normal hilt here on a dagger, on a knife, excuse me. And then we have this extra hilt right here, this thing. So that's kind of interesting. And the reason for that is you put your finger in it like this, and then this prevents the knife from being pulled out of your hand. So it's a fighting accessory. Kind of interesting. It helps you maintain the knife. You don't lose control of it. So there we go. Fun and interesting project. Thanks for watching my channel. Thanks for subscribing if you're a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, hit that button. Always lots of fun and interesting things. I do 2 new videos every week. Let's launch into the introduction, and then let's do how to make a sub-hilt fighting knife. Thank you. Dioramas, origami, catapults, and trebuchets, telescopes, terrariums, bonsai trees, and paper games, swords and shields, and real blacksmithing, rattle box animation. I teach the art of real creation. StormTheCastle.com. Let's make something. All right, let's get started on this knife. The first thing I did was I made up some cardboard mock-ups so I could get a good feel for it, and it's also a template. How it's going to be arranged, what the size of the parts are. See the hilt and the sub-hilt? So I can put my hand in there and try it. And now I have templates for the steel pieces. So much easier this way. You can make mistakes and just use a new piece of cardboard and start over until you get it just about where you want it. So now let's move on to the steel. Let's take a look. I thought you'd like to see this. This is the steel. It's 01, which means oil quenched, 1/8 inch thick, 3 inches wide, and a 36-inch long piece. There, it's written there too. So now we need to transfer the pattern of our knife and our hilts over to the steel. But we're not doing the 1/8 inch steel for the hilts. I'll show you that later. So we put the template on there, trace it out. And then cut it out. And I did this all by hand. Just keep hacksawing away at it. 1/8 inch steel isn't too bad to cut. And here's a little trick I'd like to show you. Some people don't know this. You can put the hacksaw blade in the sideways. Put it in the hacksaw sideways, and then you can get at different areas, difficult spots. So after a while of cutting and a few hacksaw blades, we're getting close to our shape. And you know, take your time with this. Get the curves the best you can get them, and then finish it off. Almost finish it off. It's like 98% here with whatever other tools you have. So like a belt sander. See, when I said I didn't use any power tools, huh? Well, I did use power tools. Belt sander to take your time with this. You can establish the curves. You can even hacksaw it some more. And there we go. That is called profiling the knife. We have the profile of the knife done. And an important part here that we touch up with a file, a mill file, is that spot there, that nice angle there where we where the hilt goes. We want that nice and flush and a nice angle so the hilt sits nice and flush in that spot. You do that with a file. So let's clean it up. Now let's look at the hilt and the sub-hilt. Those are actually from a thicker piece of steel, so they're stronger. That's 3/16 inch steel. See it? Doesn't have to be thicker, but that's what I used. I wanted it to be a little thicker. Thicker than the actual blade. So I used my template to trace that out. Now we have a problem. How do we cut out the slot? It's a little bit of work, because that's going to slide right on the blade like that, the slot in the hilt. So we do it with a series of holes. We drill a series of holes, and then we file them out. So use a center punch to keep those holes nice and straight. You want a straight line of holes. And then you go right ahead and you drill those holes out. You get them as close together as you can, because it saves a lot of time. See, it looks good. Now drill right down the center of that thing, a series of holes like this. Try to keep them straight as best you can. Those are 1/8" holes. And then I used a couple of little smaller tools to drag out those holes and open up that slot, including a little saw and small files. Takes a bit of work. Oh, and notice I did not cut the hilt off of the big piece of steel. Leave it on because it's easier to work with when you get a big piece of steel like that. And once you get that slot cut out, then you can cut your hilt out. And there we go. That's what it looks like. I even touched it up on the belt sander to round it out a bit. There's your hilt. It's a bit of work there, but well worth it. And it sits nice and flush. I'm happy with it. So now let's start working on the handle. And we're going to do this process from the blade out. It's the best way to do it with a multi-segment knife like this. I cut my first piece of wood that's about 1 inch. I drill 2 holes to hold that first segment. And then see now, I clamp that on there and I actually drill those holes out using the knife, the holes in the knife as a guide, like this. And I'm just doing this to simulate to show you what I mean. If you have a drill press, use a drill press. And you flip the knife over and you do the same thing on the other side. You cut, you drill your holes, and now you have this. See it? It's about 1 inch wide, and it's plenty bigger than our actual handle. So that part is done. Now we move on to the sub-hilt and we do the same thing. But because it's the slot that goes to the end of the piece, it's much easier to drill it and cut it out with a hacksaw and whatnot. So you cut out that slot and then cut out that sub-hilt. Here we go, I'll show you, right, like this. And now that will slide on like this. It's a much easier piece to make that'll go a lot quicker. Starting to come together. See how we're working from right to left? We continue doing that. So now I cut out pieces for the middle section of the handle. And you do the same thing, you mark them and you drill them. Oh, and by the way, these holes will be 1/4 inch holes. The previous 2 holes that I just did, those are 1/8 inch holes. So now I drill out those 2 holes where I want them. And then use that as my guide to drill through the wood. Oh, and one more thing too, if you can, to get the burrs off of that, you use a counter sink. Cleans it right up. That way when you're pushing the pins through, they don't get stuck. So now drill right through the handle like that with the holes you made into your wood handle parts. And pin one after you do it so you know you've got a perfect match. You don't want it to slip or slide, you want it to be exactly in the right spot. You want everything to be nice and tight with very little tolerance. So you got that dowel pin in there. You do that on the other side of the handle, and there you go. Pin them. Now these are temporary pins, so we can work on this. We're going to replace those wooden pins with brass, although you don't have to. Same thing with the end piece. Cut out a rough shape. Drill your holes in the steel first, and then use those as a template to cut through the wood. And there we go. Pin those just like you did the previous 2 pieces, or 4 pieces. And now you can start to shape out the handle, which is wonderful. I love this part of the work. You just take your time with a rasp and just shape it and shape it and shape it to the way you like it. Take it out of the vise, feel it, get to see how it feels in your hand, how thick is it, what's the curves like. See? That's not that much work. The wood rasping goes quick compared to the work with the steel. And just keep working it like this. And one thing I wanted to show you, see, is of course your sub-hilt needs filing down too, because that was square. So you use a file to make that match your handle wood. You want it to be a nice perfect match. All right, beveling. Now you use a mill file to put the bevels in the sword, wow, in the knife. So, and with the important thing, a mill file only has a line, not a bastard file that has a crosshatch on it. You use a mill file and you only go in the forward direction like this. Do not go back and forth when you're mill filing, because it'll gum up the file. You just go forward. You flip it over, you do the other side, and then you flip it over and you do the other side, up on the bottom. So you've got 4 bevels to put in. But you know, keep at it. And there you go, that's just about done. I actually did a little more work after this to clean it up, but it looks pretty good. We've got our bevels. I did not bring it to a full sharp edge. I don't recommend you do until after you've hardened and tempered it. For safety, and if you get it too thin, it is very easy to overheat it. So now, let's crank up the forge and put that knife in there. There you go. Now what we're doing is we are hardening this steel. That will make it very hard, but very brittle. We get it heated up to something called Curie temperature, where the molecules change, and how we know it's up to the right temperature, it will glow red hot, and the magnet will no longer stick to it. See, I was just checking it with a magnet. That's how we know we got it up to temperature. So, clean it off a little bit, move it around, try to get it an even red like this. Just about perfect. A little towards the handle is a little underdone, but that's okay. And then you quench it. Check it with your magnet and quench it. Now this locks it in. Nice. It looks good. I enjoyed this part of it. I enjoy all the parts of it, but some parts are more fun than others. All that filing, that's a lot of work. Looks good. So now we're going to temper it, and how we do that is by color. So use some memory paper and clean all of the junk off of that until it's roughly silver again. We're going to watch it to turn color. That's what happens with steel. Everybody knows you heat up steel, it turns red, but it actually goes through a series of colors before it gets to red. And the first color is wheat, and then it'll go to a plum color. See that wheat color like that? That means it's between 450 and 500 degrees, and it is tempered. It's softened up just a little bit. So quench it. And that's it. This blade is hardened and tempered. So you heat it up to red hot to harden it, clean it up, and then heat it up to wheat color to temper it. So now let's polish it. I go through a series of emery papers. I start out around 80 or 100, clean it all up, and we're really focused on the blade, not so much on the handle. And I progress through. I go 120, I go 200, as far as you want to go and as much work as you want to do. The more work you do, the shinier it will get. You can get it to be like a mirror. And what's this, 400? You usually go to 600. Occasionally I'll go to 1500, but that's a lot of work. So keep polishing it. And there you go. And don't forget to clean up. If you don't want to polish, you should at least clean up your hilt and your sub-hilt. Make those nice looking steel. That's that. So now I wanted to show you something. We replace those wooden pins with brass pins. I got same size holes as we drilled, 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch. And you could, you could buy brass like that in any hardware store, Home Depot or Lowe's. It's easy to get. And notice how I got all my pieces numbered there. That's kind of important. I didn't lose track. So we take it all apart if it's together, and then cut your brass pins a little bit larger than your wooden pins, temporary pins you had in there. A little bit longer because we're going to file them down to be perfect size. Now once you got all your pins ready, let's glue this thing together. Gorilla Glue is outstanding for this. I love Gorilla Glue. It's a two-part glue. And any type you want. I use the 5-minute setting. It seems fine. It works fine for me. They've got like 15-minute setting time if you want to take your time. You don't want to rush. Or if this is your first knife, use like the 15 or 30-minute set time. So it's real simple to do. Just follow the directions with it. You dispense some out into a little container, and then you stir it for the recommended amount of time, depending on the type of glue you use. It isn't long, 20 seconds. Put a very liberal amount on your first. Now start this way. Put your hilt on. We're going to go from right to left. That's important. Put your hilt on, and then put your first piece on like this. There we go. Very nice. Then you do the same thing with its matching pair, with the match of the pair. Put a liberal amount of glue on there. Whoops, don't drop it. And then press that on. Now hopefully that'll be a nice snug fit. Now sometimes, I don't know if I show any footage, but I'll put a towel over it and tap it sometimes. like tapping it like this, you know, you might scuff it a little bit, although we got a little more work to do. But there you go. The pins are a little big, perfect. That first piece is on there nice and tight. So you move down to the second set of wood pieces. You apply your glue, you put them through, and then you put the matching piece on. I'm telling you, if you always wanted to make a knife and you never have, just go for it. Don't worry about it. You should. I never showed anybody the first knife I made. It was horrible. I ruined it. That's okay. You learn. See, so here you go. So I use a towel and tap it down. Hey, bonus points if you can tell me what that tool was. See that tool right there, that black tool? So now that we've got that second set of wood in, now we can apply a liberal amount of glue and put the sub-hilt in there. Slide it right in there, like that, till it's nice and tight. Wipe off the excess glue. We're just about done. Thank you for hanging in this far into the tutorial. I mean, you do the same thing for the final, the butt end of the handle. Glue that all in. Now you should clamp all of this down, but not clamping on the pins, so that glue makes a nice, really hard, really tight, good, solid fit. And then once it's dried, look at that, good to go. You clean it up with something, turpentine or paint thinner or something. Clean off all the, well, I'm sorry, clean off the excess glue before you clamp it, because you're going to clamp it and more glue is going to come out. You know, so clean it up. It just makes it, if you clean it up early, it makes it easier to clean later. So now we do our touch-up work, our finishing work, right? File down those brass pins. And you do this in sequence. Do some filing on the pins, do a little work on the handle if you want, then file those pins again so they look shiny again, and you go back and forth a little bit until you are satisfied with the end outcome, and then do a little bit of sandpapering. And it leaves a grit, so you wipe that grit off when you're done. But hey, our knife is just about done. One more step. All right, it's been fun. You know, it's quite a bit of work to do a knife like this, especially this one's a little more complicated than the average knife because there's 6 handle pieces and 6 pins and a sub-hilt. But you know, it was worth it. I really enjoyed the whole process. And then we polish it up with some tung oil. So wipe it down, clean it, and then rub on tung oil. And you can let it dry, scuff it with sandpaper, and rub on another coat of tung oil. And you can do that a lot of times. I've done it as many as 100 coats, and boy, does it look good. It just has a luster to it if you do it a lot. Okay, well, that's it. Thanks for watching. I really very much appreciate it. Here's the finished sub-hilt fighting knife. Very good. It's fit to my hand. So, if you're a big guy like me, you could use my template to make one, but otherwise fit it to your hand so it's comfortable for you. Lots more stuff on my website at stormthecastle.com, and of course here on my YouTube channel, Epic Fantasy. Up top there's a couple of videos. That first video is a knife making for beginners. I take you through these meticulous steps, so there's no questions. You don't have any questions. You know exactly what to do and everything. The bottom one is how to forge a knife, you know, hammer and anvil in the forge. It was a long time ago when I only remember bits and pieces of it. I was deep under the sand under the pyramids, and my tour guide was a younger man, and he had found a friend of his, another younger man, and they were escorting me around, and we paid off a security guard to get into a tomb that wasn't allowed, the public wasn't allowed to go into. And before you knew it, the three of us were alone in this catacombs, almost like an ossuary, and there were big stone columns, and I walked into the room because it was quite amazing, although dark, walking away from them, and there was a column on my left, which as I turned around, something just told me to turn around and look, and I turned around, and another column was on my right. And just as my supposed tour guide was reaching for a knife at his belt, and I didn't even look at it. I looked him in the eye and I growled. He glanced over at his companion, and I don't remember much after that. It's all kind of fuzzy. You know, what told me to turn around at that very moment, I don't know. But, you know, a mystery abounds. Knives are serious business. Handle your knife carefully, respect it, and always treat it well, and never, you know, never use it against someone else. You know, that's something that you made with your own two hands, and you should pour only positive things into it, not bad intent.